And welcome to another edition of South Texas Crossfire. This is attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on KTMB with the Lopez family. Special thanks to Don Humberto Lozano Lopez. He passed away in 2011, but he's honored, he's venerated, he's never forgotten. And let's not forget my good friend Carlos Lopez. You guessed it, the Ted Turner of South Texas. Now, listen. We are going to have a very special guest on, and this whole show, we're having some VIPs, and we're having some passionate attorneys on, we're having judges on, we're having newsmen on, so grab your popcorn and sodas and get around the sofa because it's going to be a blockbuster of an hour. Now, first guest on the list right now, good friend of mine, great lawyer. Remember this name, Chris Gail. Welcome, Chris. How are you?
Thank you, Jim.
Now, Chris, I've been trying to get you on the show for a decade because you are busy. We're going to be talking about civil rights, which is a very, very important issue. But before we jump in there, could you please tell our audience about your education, training background, your family?
You know, I'm from North Texas, up in the Denton area. Went to school up in North Texas, graduated in accounting and biochemistry, and kind of made my way south to law school in San Antonio and attended law school at St. Mary's, and then now I've made my way down here to Corpus, and while I've been coming down to Corpus for years, since I was a little kid, I've made my home here now, and so I'm finally back where I should be, I suppose. So.
All right, so we're going to go get a beer once in a while.
That'd be great.
Biochemistry, accounting, and law. I hated these guys in law school. They have the left and the right brain like the Hulk, you know. But what got you, and I know a lot of people will say, well, civil rights and things, you know. I personally think that it's taken a back burner. A good friend of mine, Morris Dees from the Southern Poverty Law Center, picks up the flag. You do down here. What is specifically civil rights law, and what kind of issues does it encompass?
Well, I mean, the majority of the cases that I handle are things involving excessive force or some kind of constitutional violations by government officials, whether that be police departments, sheriff's departments, jails, prisons, you know, so be it. You know, there's also kind of another vein that deals just with civil rights in general, and sort of the idea of, you know, how did I get into this? I guess it kind of goes with this, is that I have an inherent distrust of authority. I also have an inherent respect for authority. I mean, I respect law enforcement, I respect government, but I don't completely trust them. And I think that's a healthy thing to have. And I personally think that more citizens need to have a little bit more of, maybe not a distrust, but just a questioning of authority. So, you know, civil rights is about protecting the rights of people and society, not necessarily just those that affect me or benefit me, but those that may benefit the public in general. So, you know, I do a wide-ranging various types of cases and struggles.
Well, and with that being said, you have to be selective with the cases because I am sure you get inundated with a flood of cases that may or may not qualify. What kinds of things are you looking for in a case that may have strength? Because as you said, potential jurors on a on a panel may think, well, if this guy's in jail, he must have done something wrong. One. Two, policemen are inherently more honest, and I've asked those kinds of questions on my criminal trials. So what kind of barriers and / criteria are you looking for? Because I know as a great trial lawyer, you're looking at what's a jury going to think about this case.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have to look forward to that aspect of it. I mean, you know, in a perfect world, I'd like all my clients to be first-time persons that have never had any interaction with the police whatsoever, who are professionals, either as attorneys or doctors, have done nothing wrong, and then were beaten viciously by, you know, for no reason. But that's not what you get. I mean, you get people. Sometimes people who have mental illnesses, sometimes people who have been in trouble with the police before. And, you know, so I try not to take my cases based exactly on the person, you know, because everyone deserves representation and help. And, you know, they always say a society is not judged by the way that it treats its best in society, but the way it treats its worst. So, you know, if we want to take the people that are constantly in trouble with the law, that does not mean that we can, you know, just throw away their civil rights. So, you know, the criteria, it's hard to tell. You know, oftentimes a lot of the cases involve dramatic damages, but sometimes they really don't. And they're more about the larger issues that are at hand. So kind of a balance between the damages at stake in the case, because I spent a lot of time and money, you know, investing in these cases. So I need to pay my staff and survive. And I always tell people I'd love to help everybody, but if I did, I'd go bankrupt, and then I could help nobody. So, you do have to be somewhat selective, but juries, I tend to think that they're smarter than people think, and that they can look past somebody and say, you know what, I may not necessarily really like this person. I may not invite them to dinner or come over and watch my kids or something of that nature, but what happened to them was wrong. And regardless of what they've done in the past, the police shouldn't have acted in the way that they did. So that's kind of a hard question to answer. It just kind of depends on the facts of the case, who the person is, what issues are at stake.
Can you talk about a type of case that you have and give some examples without, commenting on the patient? The client's name, or if you want to, if it's a past case, can you give us specific examples of a case that might illuminate what our viewers are watching and listening to?
Yeah, they kind of run the gambit. Like I said, you've got a lot of cases. I've probably handled hundreds of them where there's someone that's being arrested for one thing or another. Whether they were guilty or not is kind of irrelevant, but during the arrest, force is used upon them, either through taser, baton, or just fisticuffs or what have you, and there's damages associated with that. You've got other ones where people are shot or killed. The suicide cases, if there are cases where persons, let's say, for example, someone's under suicide watch, and they're also under video surveillance, where somebody's supposed to be watching them, making sure they're not going to kill themselves because they said that they would, and then no one watches and no one looks after them, and 3 hours later we find them dead. Surprise, surprise. Those types of cases. Also medical indifference cases, whether they're in prisons or in state jail facilities or in local facilities. Those are ones where persons have a known serious medical need, and then they do nothing to help them in regards to it, and something tragic happens, either death or seizures, coma, and so I'm giving you a wide-ranging type of cases, but all of these are types of cases that I've had. In fact, I'm currently handling several medical indifference cases, several suicide cases, a plethora of cases involving persons that were beaten by police officers, either during an arrest and sometimes even when they're in handcuffs at the jail, or at the city detention center here in town. Seems to be kind of a problem over there, but so those are kind of the cases that I look at. And as I said before, the damages, it kind of depends on if I'm able to take them. Depends on who the defendants were, or who the officers were that were involved. Some of these are recurring people, and I have knowledge of it, so it kind of makes a decision as well.
Well, and the other issue is that, I've done a few educational videos that sometimes officers have to restrain somebody and use force, but not excessive force. Obviously, the cases that you're citing, medical indifference, allowing somebody to hang themselves, excessive force, shootings, those are very, very serious cases. But as far as the incarceration, we are incarcerating more people per capita in Texas than any country in the world. And I think America incarcerates more people than anybody in the world.
That's correct.
So it's become a great cottage industry for many that have private prisons. What are your dealings with the private prisons, like the ones that stemmed from California, Louisiana, state corrections, LCS, correctional services? What dealings have you had with private prisons? Have you seen a big increase or swell of complaints from private prisons?
I think probably actually the opposite may be true. Is that the majority of the complaints that I see are from the state-run prisons, and not as much from the privately run facilities. I may be getting my soapbox here, but I think that the government's too involved in just about every aspect of everything in America, and I think that perhaps privatization of a lot of things, prisons included, may be a good thing. So actually, I think the opposite's true, is that the privately run facilities, I get less complaints in regards to those. That's not to say that they're complaint-free, but it's been a while since I've handled a case involving excessive force or those types of issues against a privately run facility. That's not to say that there's not ones out there. In fact, there's been a few cases that I'm aware of recently that someone has taken cases against them. So
So too early to tell, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
Some.
I think
Yeah.
there's very few privately run facilities in comparison to the state-run facilities or federally
Right.
run. So maybe that's not a good comparison because you don't really have the appropriate number of apples and oranges. So maybe a little early.
So it's a little balanced, but I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, and we're going to be playing this on TV, YouTube. I'm going to be sharing it with End Mass Incarceration, which is a Facebook page that is taking America by storm. Documentarians that are dealing with the incarceration issues will be seeing this video. What's the magic number for people to call? And also on Prison Talk, I'm going to try to arrange for you and Ray Hill to meet, the founder of Prison Talk, and that way you can reach out to prisoners nationwide. What's a number that they can reach you at 24/7?
Yeah, if they want to call me, they can call my office number, which is 210-222-8899.
And that's 222-8899. And that number is appearing in front of your screen. And that's again
222-8899.
All right. And Chris Gail, and I hope that you can come visit about every 6 months or so.
Sure.
Come visit me here in my own office, which isn't a prison cell to me. But to all my brothers and sisters out there who are incarcerated, doesn't make you a bad person. It's made some choices perhaps that were not the best. But ladies and gentlemen out there, we're incarcerating so many people at such a fast rate that someone in your family is incarcerated or on supervised release. So these issues have to be dealt with. And if your loved one or someone you know has been abused or hurt or even killed by law enforcement, we've got a great attorney here that specializes in these areas. And call my show or call Chris directly, Mr. Gail, if you all have any information or would like further information. We're going to take a break, but thank you again, Chris.
All right.
It's always an honor.
Thank you, Joe. Take care.
And we'll be back after these messages.